on Tu B'Shvat that there's a shayla from when on do you have to say Ksiyot Simatayva. I mentioned that there's two opinions. There's one opinion, Chamisha Osa B'Shvat, Tu B'Shvat, and there's another opinion for Chafov. Chamisha Osa B'Ov, Tu B'Ov, and Esem B'Ov. What's the shayla? The shayla is because the state that Rabban Yom Kaidem Yitzias of God is already machas tipazu matahayel. So now, when it comes to Briyas Olam, there are two periods for Briyas Olam. One period was Chavhei Be'el, that was Yom Rishon of Briyas Olam, and then there's Yom Shishi, which is Briyas of Adam. Das ist Yom Tchilas Masacha. So, it sounds like a stira, because Tchilas Masacha started on 5 days earlier, not on the 6th day. So they answer the question that it's not Zayim Tchilas Masacha, it's Zayim Tachas Masacha. You know, that the purpose of the creation was for Adam Arisha. So b'meila, if you go by 40 days before Briyas Ha'olam, so that is Chamisha Osa B'Ov, because that was Chavhei Be'el, so this is Chamisha Osa B'Ov. If you go 40 days before the creation of Adam, so then that is Chafov. So l'chayra, if we say, we can start learning already the dinim of Tishrei. But I figured that the Shulchan Aruch doesn't say that. Shulchan Aruch said that Shloshim Yom Kaidem Achag is you have to darshim Hilchos Achag. It's not Shloshim Yom. So what I thought of a sort of a compromise on during the month of Tishrei, there's a lot of meals, a lot of sudas. So b'meila, let's start with the suda dinam of suda, which is Siman Lametes Kitzur Shulchan Aruch. He says, "Araytze Lechol Kaidem Netilas Yadayim." If somebody is planning to have a meal, but before the meal he wants to eat, that's very common. If you go to a banquet, or you go to a chasana, so there's a lot of food that's served before the meal. So if someone wants to eat before Netilas Yadayim, dvarim sheyechem miminam ego yitech asauda, and it's such things that you will eat it later on during the meal. Bein shehem dvarim shetzricham levarach aleim tech asauda kigan peitus. The din is that if you eat fruit in the middle of the meal, just like it's like a dessert, and you have to make a bracha on it. There's a whole shayla. Many times by weddings, they used to serve a cantaloupe, a half a cantaloupe, and they filled it up with bowls of watermelon. So do you have to make a bracha on that if you're washing to the meal? So some want to say that's a din of an appetizer. An appetizer was something that builds up your appetite, to give you like an appetite to eat. So some want to say that fruit that's served is not a din that comes for kinuach suda, that comes for the end of the meal to wash down the food, but it's an appetizer to open up your stomach to digest. But if you eat peitus, normally if you eat peitus, so then you have to make a bracha in the middle. And bein shehein dvarim she'ein tzrich levarach leim b'tech asauda, and if you're eating things that when you eat this later b'tech asauda, being that you washed, you wouldn't have to make a bracha. Kegain minei liften uminei kitniyos. That means like beans or tapuchi adama or potatoes. V'chein im roitza lishtes ezer mashke chutz min hayayin koydem netilas yadayim. If he wants to drink things which he's going to drink later during the meal, v'gam b'teich asur the yishta, he'll also drink again in the middle of the meal. Yesh b'zeh machlokes haposkim. So there's a machlokes on this. Im advarim she'achol ha'shasa koydem netilas yadayim niftarim b'bichas hamazon. If this becomes kapatet with bichas hamazon, and he says, just like if you ate dessert, so you have to make a bracha on the dessert, and still you don't have to make a bracha achrayna, but the bichas hamazon patas it. Oy she'elu she'acham kaidem netilas yadayim einim iftarim b'bichas hamazon. Basically, what he's saying over here is a very practical shayla. If you buy a wedding and they have like a smorgasbord, what they call, or you buy a banquet and they have a smorgasbord, and people eat a lot before the smorgasbord, then later you go in to the other room, let's say, and over there you wash and you eat a meal. Do you have to make a bracha achrayna on the food that you ate before the meal? What? Now over here he brings that v'Rabbeinu Kosov niftarim bebichas hamazon im oichon v'oire te'oven. Okay, what he's saying over here is, I don't think it applies much over here. Like I gave the example with the appetizer, with the pineapple or the honeydew that you eat before the meal. Over there, you're eating it in order to make an appetite to eat. But the people that eat by a smorgasbord, where they walk around and eat everything, it's not for the purpose of an appetizer, to build up an appetite to eat. V'lachein yesh l'mnaya mizeh v'layecha v'layishta mehem kisheh hamachai bracha achrayna rak kaidem asauda v'yavara bracha achrayna. Another, basically what he's saying is that if you ate before a meal, so you have to make a bracha achrayna on the meal. If you didn't make the bracha achrayna, you vara b'teich asauda fil be'acha bichas hamazon. V'im ochel ashasa miminim elu gam b'teich asauda is yehada acha bichas hamazon לאכל לשתות איזה דבר, לברך ברכה אחרונה, לפתע גם מה שאוכל שעשה קודם נטילת ידיים. I think what's popular today is, I think the people make a bracha achrayna before they wash, and then they eat a meal, and that's it. The same thing comes like every Shabbos. There's a lot of people, especially if you stay in a hotel Shabbos. So they have a big kiddush before the meal, big spread, and it's something like a smorgasbord by a dinner. So on the wine, no shayla, because but the rest of the food they eat you have to make a bracha achrona. Im reitzel lishtes yayin koidem netilas yadayim afilu lo yishta yayin b'teich hasa'uda mikol mokem yesh oimim kiven da yayin bogav toyer b'nei ha'me'ayim. The wine is a thing that builds up an appetite to eat. V'hamshach tavis ha'achila im kain hi v'kal hasa'uda v'nifta v'birchas hamazon. V'yeshem, some say, tafil im shoyse yayin gam b'teich hasa'uda mikol makom ein ha'yayin shel teich hamazon nifta v'birchas hamazon. V'lachen, therefore, yeshem noya mirishtes kaidem netilas yadayim elam ken yishta kais yayin gam la'achav birchas hamazon sheyivorach achav al hagefen v'yifta gam masha sosa kaidem netilas yadayim. This is not talking about Kiddush. Kiddush is different. In the first one, we're going to in the beginning. In the beginning, we're going to embrace Elishas Ezer Mashke, Chutz min hayayin. Because that's what he's talking about over here by a regular student. But the yayin has a shachas to the. So Moshe, if someone made Kiddush and he ate, let's say, mezainis for Mokum Suda, so I don't think he has to make a gefen before the Suda. V'im reitzel lishtes yayin sorav kaidem hasa'uda. If he wants to drink yayin sorav that's called mashke, whiskey, kaidem hasa'uda, bein sheyishta gam b'teich hasa'uda, bein lo yishta. Yizor shlo yishta kaidem hasa'uda rak pachas mikazayis. Avu mishasa kazayis hayayisa nafel with a suffix bracha achrona, and maybe you shouldn't do it. Damn it, so those that make Kiddush or mashke, so there's a whole shayla, they have a little cup of mashke. So it's less than a kazayas. But they hold that Vival, you don't drink more. I'm not talking about people that drink mashke. So you can be yaitz Kiddush with that. When we take Kiddush or mashke, we take a whole kais. Im reitzel lacho.
But on mashke is making a shackle.
Yeah.
So you're going to say bracha achrona shackle.
By nefashos. Im reitzel lacho kaid netilas yadayim mina mezainis. You're going ugas devash. Ugas means honey cake. Ugas beitzim. The mezainis that made with eggs. He says he touched up in Yiddish eierkuchen. Eierkuchen means kichel. Ukadayme shebracha shalahem hi ala micha. Bein sheyechel mehem gam b'teich hasa'uda. Bein sheyechel mehem b'teich hasa'uda. Yikol makom hein niftarim v'birchas hamazon ki birchas hamazon peteres ala micha. But he adds over here, from the Alter Rebbe, v'davke im oichel ne'oire te'oven. So he ate it to arouse an interest to eat. Avlim oichel m'tainik b'vad, but if he's just eating out of joy, tzarech avarach aleim, kanal sifalef. V'afim niskal v'nei birchas hamazon, tzarech avarach tchila ala michya, kaidem birchas hamazon. Ubavad shra yafsik habe ben achila zul netilas yadayim. Avo tzarech hafsik habe. So then tzarech avarach tchila birchas ala michya, amasha achol, אפילו יאכל ממין אלו גם בתוך הסעודה. So what's the din of mashrek? By Kiddush, he's not talking over here by Shabbos, by Kiddush. But by Kiddush, if you make Kiddush on mashke, or you make Kiddush on wine, and then you eat, what do you call it, mezainis, asmokum suda, and you ate mashal a piece of herring, then you go to the meal. So the piece of herring could be is of tayach hamazon, but on the food itself, I don't think we make a bracha achrayna. It was just
depends how much you're eating. Depends how much you're eating.
No, it's something else. See, das ist the child sits little tea oven only eat on the container.
Okay, but if you're making a kiddush, if you're making kiddush and you're eating the cake, mitzad makom suda. I say we don't make a.
Rabbi always used to say. Rabbi used to say whoever need to make bracha achrayna, don't forget.
That was after the Farbrengen, the people.
People didn't.
That was because they didn't eat a meal after that. So, and you could have eaten during the Farbrengen. There was mezainas on the table. So that's what the Rebbe said. If you have to make a bracha achrayna, you shouldn't forget to make a bracha achrayna. But not if you're going right into a meal after that. And the kiddush is just like dama to the suda. So it could be that you don't have to. Not unless, like I said before, if it's a whole spread beforehand, all people eat the chont and all kind of meats and everything. Yeah. I was once in Eretz Yisrael on a Shabbos, and I stood in a hotel called La Rome, which was a big hotel. I think they changed the name now, but it was a very chashuv hotel. And by I went Shabbos down by the Kaisel, and I met over there by the Kaisel a man. He's not living anymore. Berel Naimak was his name. He's from the Lipska family, and he took me he was staying in the Sheraton, so he took me as a guest to the Sheraton. It was an unbelievable spread that before the meal. So, but there you have to make a bracha achrayna before you eat it, before you eat the meal. Okay, let's start.